Hello and welcome to episode 68 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. Today's show is going to cover topics in Disney parks on both coasts of the United States. First, we're going to hear from our good friend Gillian, who got to experience the new ride at Epcot, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. We both wrote it on Monday in an annual pass holder preview, and we're going to give our thoughts on that newest attraction. After that, Sarah Says is going to take us to Disneyland so we can take an audio tour of Fantasyland. Sometimes our topics are very specific, and we forget that not everyone gets to go to these theme parks as much as we get to experience them. Sarah and I will just go through Fantasyland and talk about what we think is a must-do and what can be skipped. Before we get started, I am leaving for my 620-mile pilgrimage on the Ireland Way to raise money and awareness for the fight against domestic violence. I am leaving in less than a month. The flights are booked, some of the hotel rooms are booked, and all of the gear has been purchased. My initial thought was to team up with a small domestic violence organization so that the money we raised would truly make a huge difference to that organization. But to be honest, this was just too difficult logistically, as many of the smaller nonprofit organizations have a lot of volatility and turnover of both strategies and personnel. I know I promised this would be the week that I would have more information, but I need to push that back just one more time. My number one goal is to actually help victims and survivors of domestic violence. I want to make sure that every single dollar we raise makes a difference. We're finalizing all of the information, and when I ask for donations, I want to make sure this is the last time. While I'm in Ireland, you will not have to worry about missing episodes of the podcast. Sarah, Courtney, Marissa, and I, as well as many of our other friends in the community, are putting together some great episodes that will be set to run while I'm walking the Ireland Way. There are some really fun topics that are Disney-related and some that are not Disney-related. Of course, when I return, I'll definitely be telling you all about my journey while also bringing you that theme park content you love. From being recognized in the parks, to raising money for charities in the past, to creating friendships that are truly important to my real life. I have gotten a lot out of this podcast that has never made me a dime personally. We're all focused on growing this thing in the second half of the year and trying our best to make sure that we help people along the way. Now, here's Gillian to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. Thanks for doing this, Gillian.
Thank you for having me.
So, you just did the Guardians of the Galaxy annual pass holder preview for the brand new ride, Cosmic Rewind. What are your first thoughts?
My first thoughts are that I'm still processing it because my mind is absolutely blown by what I've just experienced.
So I'll tell you, I'm not a huge person for roller coasters, and I was a little nervous going into this. We rode with somebody else who was also nervous about riding it. But I'll tell you, if you've done Expedition Everest, if you've done Space Mountain, I don't know if you can necessarily say if you've done Big Thunder you can do this one, but I pretty much think if you've done any of those rides, you can definitely do this one. If you've done Rock and Roller Coaster, this one's nothing as far as being too much for you. If you've done Star Tours, you don't have to worry about getting nauseous. I think that was something we were worried about going into it, but we had a big breakfast, and I think it was perfectly fine.
Yeah, I have a cast iron stomach, so I was definitely the odd man out on this one, so I knew it was going to be fine for me regardless. But yes, you guys were worried. It was a very smooth ride. If you're talking about your stomach and dizziness issues, very smooth ride. Spinning just on point, just good enough. Not that fast. You're talking about intense thrill coasters, definitely not as fast as any of those like Everest, or I wouldn't say it was as fast as Everest, or
not even close.
Or Rock and Roller Coaster, not at all. It definitely can be done by everyone of all ages and stomachs.
I think it is more actually thrilling and fun than it is thrilling and scary at all. It's mostly just to keep your energy going the whole time, which is funny because it replaced Universe of Energy, and that is sort of the theme of the ride is energy, and that's how I would describe it. You're filled with energy the whole time. You're having fun. We got One Way or Another from Blondie. It rotates different 80s songs, and I think we were both real happy to have that one.
Yes, I enjoy that song greatly. I didn't know that our friend said that they have Tears for Fears. I was like, that doesn't fit for me. I'm just fine with rocking out to Blondie. That's definitely vibe, but the vibe is nonstop, ratcheted up to 11 the entire time. It's nonstop fun. It does not stop. There's not a lull for the entire time that you're on this coaster, and the visuals, crisp, amazing colors, just because it's a new coaster, but from beginning to finish, amazing.
And I'm not a Guardians of the Galaxy fan, not that I don't like them, I just haven't seen the movies. So as far as going into it as somebody who doesn't really know the movies, I'm going to say you can still enjoy it. But as somebody like you who really, really loves the movies, how true to canon was it?
Oh, the cast. I am going to say it wasn't Bradley Cooper voicing Rocket. I was not happy about that, but what are you going to do? But the cast and characters on point, just like out of the movies. Like, it really was the theming, the entire storyline, which, not going to spoil things, but it ties into future MCU, universe issues. Amazing. Like, it's great storytelling. It's amazing. If you're a Guardians fan, if you're an MCU fan, you're gonna love this ride.
And I'm gonna say, even if you aren't, even if you've never seen the movies, you will enjoy this ride. It is next level. All the time it took for them to do this ride was well worth it. It's opening May 27th to the general public. Get to Epcot as soon as you can and ride this. Gillian, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Thank you, bestie.
Let's keep things moving along by welcoming Sarah Says back to the show. Thanks for being here, Sarah.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Today I thought we would do something a little different, and we're just going to take a tour around one of the lands at Disneyland. We're probably going to do this more and more often over the course of the next year, where we're just going to pick one land, either at Disneyland or at Walt Disney World, and just go over what in that land is quality, what you might be able to skip, and just some other recommendations when it comes to maneuvering through that particular land. And for the first one, we're going to go with a big one with a lot of attractions, a lot of things to experience, and that is Fantasyland at Disneyland. I can't think of any other land at any Disney theme park that has this much to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's totally fair. There's a lot jam-packed in that little area.
So we're going to start with something I don't even really consider being part of Fantasyland because of its location, and it feels more like it's on Main Street, USA, and that is the Royal Theater, which is just to the left of Sleeping Beauty Castle if you're walking down Main Street, USA at the start of the day. One of the things about the Royal Theater is this is a place that you can do those meet and greets with the princesses. When we were there most recently, they were still obviously socially distant meet and greets with the princesses, but we know how exciting it is to get the chance to get that picture with Cinderella or Mulan or Belle. I think this is something really important to have at Disneyland, and usually, at least right now, you get to meet multiple princesses at the same time. So maybe if this would only be something you would wait 5, 10, 15 minutes to do in the past, maybe you can sneak it up to 20, 25 minutes because you know you're going to see multiple characters and not just one.
Like you said, I don't ever think of that area as part of Fantasyland because as a kid, I don't remember it being part of Fantasyland. I mean, I believe that because they've stretched Fantasyland out a little bit more to accommodate more princesses, because there are so many now, that it is a really useful spot for that, to take it out of the big hubbub of the middle of Fantasyland and where meet and greets used to be and things like that. And I know in the past too, they've used it for things like if a band plays or something like that, they would use that little covered area for that. But it definitely helps relieve some of the pressure.
And also right by the Royal Theater is an underappreciated food cart. I don't even know if a lot of people know it's back there, and that's Maurice's Treats. According to the map, it's sweet and savory twists and boysen apple freezes. I know that Courtney, my wife, got a lot of things here that she really, really enjoyed. And sometimes it's nice to have that place where you can just walk up, not have to wait in a line, and get a couple snacks.
Yeah, I've never gotten anything from there. I'm one of those people that probably have walked past it about 500 times and never got anything because it's where it's located. Like we talked about, it kind of looks like it's just another cart for Main Street, USA. So if you're not paying attention to the name, but I have heard, like from Courtney, that there are some really delicious things there.
And now we're going to get more into the meat of Fantasyland, what people think of when they think of Fantasyland, and we're going to talk about some rides, some really good ones. Pinocchio's Daring Journey. What's your take on Pinocchio's Daring Journey? Where does this rank among the Fantasyland rides for you?
You know, I like it. I think it's cute. It's nostalgic for me because I loved Pinocchio when I was little, and so I loved this ride when I was a kid. But as an adult, it's not very high on my list. It's, if there's not really a line, which normally there is not really a line, I'll probably go on. If it has like a 5-minute wait, I'll be like, oh yeah, let's just walk on and ride it. It's fun, it's entertaining. But as a child, I would have waited forever to ride this ride.
And I think one of the things that I like about Disneyland, especially Disneyland's Fantasyland over Fantasyland at Walt Disney World, is just the sheer number of rides, and especially dark rides. So maybe this isn't my favorite dark ride. It's not one that's going to make or break my vacation, but just knowing that there's another Fantasyland ride that's going to have a 5 to 10 minute wait most of the day. It's a nice dark ride. These are the types of experiences you think of when you think of Disney theme parks, these old school dark rides. So I like that it's there, but compared to some of the other ones, maybe it's not the most important. Now we're going to move on to a ride that recently was updated, and also some podcast trivia is the first ride that Sarah and I ever experienced together, and that is Snow White's Enchanted Wish. So this used to be Snow White's Scary Adventure. They updated it a little bit so it's not as scary for the kids. And I've experienced both versions. Sarah's experienced both versions. While I love the old school version, I understand why they changed it. And I do really like the updated version as well. This is one I would wait to do it. If I was on my last day of my trip and I still had not done it, I'd wait a half hour to 40 minutes for this one just to make sure I experienced it on the vacation.
I don't know if I agree or I disagree. I'm kind of in that. I really enjoyed the Snow White's Enchanted Wish when we rode it. I thought it was so cute. I loved the original. I do like how much more Snow White is in this one. I do like how it's a more complete story. I don't think I would wait more than a half an hour to ride it ever, even if I haven't ridden it at a park. But that's just because with dark rides, I got to decide depending on how long I'm there, how long I want to wait in line for it. I definitely would ride it no matter what if it was 30 minutes or under. But I don't think I would wait any longer than that.
So as we continue to move through Fantasyland, I'm going to ask you if you've ever done this, and if you haven't, then we're just going to basically skip it because I obviously have not done it, and that's Bibbidi Boppidy Boutique. Have you ever taken part in this experience? You got a goofy smile on your face, so I'm hoping maybe you have a story.
Yeah, well, I walked through it. It came a long time after my princess dress phase as a child. It used to just be like a store, and then they didn't. Yeah, it wasn't there when I was a kid. I've walked through it. It's adorable. I used to work for a store that did something very similar called Club Libby Lou, and they used to have one in downtown Disney. And I worked there, and then they changed it into not at downtown Disney in Seattle, and Disney changed it to the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, but it's very similar. And what I've seen, you can go in as an adult, boy or girl, doesn't matter what your association is. You can go in and they will dust you with pixie dust and you get to make a wish. It's adorable. It's super fun. And you can actually, if you have a son like I do, they can go in and they can get their hair done as well. And they'll put color in it and glitter and do all kinds of really fun stuff. I mean, because I've always been too old to go do it, I would have totally done it as a kid. My friends, her daughter did it and she just loved it. And you see little girls walking around all the time and little boys all the time that have been done up. So yeah, I think it's fun. I do it.
Now to something I think is incredibly underrated, and I'm so happy that we got the chance to do it when we had our recent trip, because the last time I was at Disneyland, the castle was under a refurbishment, and that's the Sleeping Beauty Castle walkthrough. You get to go through the castle, see some dioramas that tell the story of Sleeping Beauty. This is just really fun.
Yeah, this is a great one. I think no matter what, if you can, there is a version of it that is accessible. So you can, no matter how you move around, you can experience it, which is very cool. But I think everyone should experience it at least once when they go to Disneyland. It's kind of hidden, so you have to look for it if you aren't sure where it is, but it's a good one.
And now I'm just realizing there was something that I really wanted to do on my trip that I didn't get the chance to do, so I think I'm going to have to start planning another Disneyland vacation right now, and that is King Arthur Carousel. Obviously, I can experience Prince Charming's Carousel here at Walt Disney World on a regular basis anytime I want to do it, and it's not that different from King Arthur Carousel, except for all of the history associated with Walt Disney, the man himself, and how he came up with the idea of having these theme parks while watching his daughters ride a carousel. Obviously, I don't think a lot of people are going to wait a very long time to ride this, but if it's a walk-on, if it's a short wait, I think it's worth it to have the experience.
I think it's really fun to look at. I don't ever remember riding it. I mean, I probably did when I was little, but I don't remember. And I'm not much of a carousel person. I used to run one, so I'm like, eh. but I love looking at it, but I probably would not ride it unless my son wanted to. I'd ride it with him.
I have not ridden this ride just because I didn't go to Disneyland until I was an adult, and I didn't really feel like it was important for me, but that's Casey Jr. Circus Train that goes through Fantasyland. Obviously a great ride for the little kids, but if you're an adult and you're with just adults, I think you can skip this one pretty easily.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a very squished space, no matter what size you are, whether you're a child or an adult. So I would say if you're going with a bunch of adults, unless you are a diehard Dumbo fan, even then it's fun. It's great for little kids and for adults that love that, but I am not one of those people.
When we were on our trip back in August, Sarah did not ride this ride with us, but we're talking about Dumbo the Flying Elephant. Because it's so iconic, I felt like flying across the country to be at Disneyland, I should experience their version of Dumbo, but it's just one of those wheel and spoke rides that isn't that special, except for that Dumbo has that iconic stature at this point. I probably won't ride it the next time I'm at Disneyland, but I felt like that time it was needed for me, and I wouldn't do it if it was any more than a 15-minute wait.
Yeah, I don't remember I think I was in Galaxy's Edge. I was going to get photos taken because I was in my dark gray outfit. And then I came back and I, like a proud parent, I got to stand at the gate and watch you and Courtney ride on Dumbo the Flying Elephant, which it's such a cute ride. It's really fun. But if it's not too long of a wait, maybe, but I don't seek Dumbo out. I did love him as a child, though. I loved that ride as a child.
Now, obviously, the best ride in Disneyland is in Frontierland, and that's Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. And probably the second best ride at Disneyland is back in Galaxy's Edge, and that's Star Wars Rise of the Resistance. But I'm staking claim that the third best ride at Disneyland is Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in Fantasyland. So iconic. Opening day attraction. It is the only Disney ride I can think of in my mind where you end up in hell. It's such a bizarre little ride that is a dark ride, is intended for kids, but it has like a dark side. You go through a bar and there's a well-endowed woman who's trying to serve you drinks. Like, it's so not Disney, but it is iconic Disney at the same time. And obviously, those of us who go to the Walt Disney World parks more, we used to have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and that got replaced by the Winnie the Pooh ride. So whenever I'm in Disneyland, I have to do Mr. Toad's Wild Ride multiple times. I'd wait for this one, although it usually doesn't have that big of a wait. So if you just sort of watch it throughout the day, it's going to drop down to a 10, 15, 20-minute wait a few times.
Oh, yeah, totally. And I agree. This is a must do. I love Mr. Toad. And like you said, it's what ride in Disneyland ends you in hell? And it literally ends there. You're done. It's such a good one. And going piggybacking off of the wait, I normally wouldn't ride it if it was too long of a wait. If the way that I gauge it, so if you're in Disneyland, the way I gauge it is if I walk by and there is a line in the outside switchbacks, the line is too long. So wait, and it'll clear up. And as soon as it moves to where you're a little bit outside, that's usually the best time to get on because it's not that long of a wait at all.
So I'm going to tell a really dumb story. I used to work in rock radio, and it was around the time that Metallica released the song No Leaf Clover, which has the line, "Then it comes to be that the soothing light at the end of your tunnel was just a freight train coming your way." And every time I played that song on the radio, I immediately thought of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which is hilarious because, first of all, it says something probably about Metallica's lyric writing, but I absolutely love that ride. I have 2 Mr. Toad's Wild Ride shirts that I wear to the parks very frequently, and please, Disneyland, we forgave you for what you did to Walt Disney World, but never get rid of it at Disneyland. Now we're going to move on to what is probably the most popular ride in Fantasyland at Disneyland, and also in Fantasyland at Walt Disney World, with the exception of Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, and that is Peter Pan's Flight. This ride tends to get a long line, and I just don't do it when I'm at Disneyland because it's not different enough from the Walt Disney World version. My time is really, really important to me, and it just doesn't seem worth it to me. But it's iconic. You get to ride in the flying boats. What's your opinion on it, Sarah?
I think it's a great ride. It's really fun. You get to fly, which is so cool. And it's such a different experience than the other Fantasyland rides. But to me, it's not worth that long of a wait. And I mean, when we were there and we rope dropped to head up to Toontown to Roger Rabbit, and everybody rope dropped for Peter Pan. Like almost everyone went there. You saw a few people splitting other ways, but oh my goodness. And so that's when the line starts. And the only time I feel like it ends is when they have to take everyone out of Fantasyland for fireworks. And then everybody like second rope drops to go back. So if you happen to, want to wait in a long line, great. They do have in the app kind of a cool thing where you can play a game along with it if you can get it to work. If you have a small child, I mean, I definitely would stand in that line for my son because he would love it. But just me, if it were me and my husband, or if we went back, or if I was there with friends, there's no way I'm going to wait in that line.
I know sometimes when people ask me what's the most overrated ride at Walt Disney World or at Disneyland, I will say Peter Pan's Flight. Not that I don't like it. And I know our mutual friend, Christina in Alaska, will rip me every time I say it. I'm not saying it's bad. It's a great ride, and it was the first ride I ever rode as a Walt Disney World pass holder. I wanted to get the fast pass for Peter Pan's Flight because it is so iconic. But I just can't justify wasting that much of my park day trying to get the chance to ride it. So we're going to move on to the Mad Tea Party. Once again, talking about iconic. Riding around in the teacups, it's one of the first things you think of when you think of Disneyland. And here is going to be my embarrassing confession for the day. I have never done it.
At either park?
No, I've done it at Walt Disney World.
Oh,
I've never done it at Disneyland because I don't even know why. I guess Courtney doesn't really want to ride it because it gets you all dizzy, and then I would have to ride it by myself, and then I'd feel goofy and all that kind of stuff. But I've never ridden it. I love that it's there. It is so picturesque at Disneyland, and I feel like in Walt Disney World, you don't even notice it's there. Like, I forget it's there when I'm walking past it. That's how weird the Disney World version is, but I love the Disneyland version, just seeing it, not even having to ride it.
Yeah, it's a great photo op. It's a really cool space. I think when we were there, I remember we were standing in for Alice, and the line for the teacups was huge, which is not like, I feel like that's not very frequent for that ride there. I am not a teacups fan. I don't care for them. If I have to, I'll ride them, but I think everyone should try. So next time you're there, to do it once, because it is very cool ambiance to be in that area. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of that one.
And speaking of Alice in Wonderland, this is a ride that people who've only been to Walt Disney World and haven't been to Disneyland, and you want to know, what are some reasons that I have to go to Disneyland and experience that separately? I think the Alice in Wonderland ride is one of those rides.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's so cool. It's so much fun. I mean, I probably wouldn't wait more than a half an hour for it, but it's another one that it fluctuates really well through the day of how long you wait in line, but it is so cool to go through that ride.
And we are just making our way through Fantasyland. We are almost complete. And right now we have a ride that, I'm going to say something kind of controversial here. I don't know if I'm ever going to do this one again, because
I think what you're talking about.
Once again, an iconic image. I love taking pictures, but boy, I just don't feel like being in this much pain, and that is Matahorn Bobsleds. I am 6'4", so I can only sit in the very, very front row, and it knocks my back around a lot. I don't know. I just don't think this one is for me.
Yeah, after that last one, I know we talked about this when we were recapping our vacation, but I don't think I could do it again. I honestly thought I fractured my upper arm. I had a huge bruise for a couple of weeks. It's too violent for me now. Maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know. I told my sister when we got back that I would pay her to take my son on it when we go for our first time, because she'll do it. But yeah, it's such a cool, like, I love that ride. I love it, but I just can't physically take it anymore.
Here's another one we didn't do on our vacation, and it's only because I've done it before, and even if it doesn't have a long wait, it still takes a lot of time, and I don't think the payoff is really worth the amount of time it takes out of your park day, and that's the Storybook Land canal boats. Yes, there's some fun photo opportunities, but it just takes a long time.
No, I agree. I haven't ridden that ride in years, and it's cool. The miniatures are really cool. It's cool to ride at night when you like that kind of, like, you like seeing that kind of stuff, but it's not one that I would spend and take a good chunk of my park day to go and do.
And we'll wrap things up with It's a Small World, which might be a little bit controversial because it's an earworm that really does bother a lot of people. But I still think this is so iconic. It just screams Disney. It's everything Disney does well. It's family friendly. The Disneyland version has the incredible facade, and it incorporates with dolls from the different countries some of the Disney characters. That was a controversial addition when it happened, but I really like it. I think it gives you something else to look for while you're riding through the ride. Heck, we rope dropped it once. That's how much we love It's a Small World. So why don't you just talk about that very briefly here, Sarah, and then we will wrap up this portion of the episode.
Yeah, I love It's a Small World. I mean, yes, the song can be a lot, but the Disneyland version, I have never ridden the one in Walt Disney World, mainly because I think we walked past it because it's inside of a building where the facade is beautiful. At Christmas, it's amazing because of all the lights and the Santa hat that's on the clock. And then, like you said, the addition of the characters in the ride, I love. And it was so much fun when we rode it together, that it was like, okay, it's the great hunt for where are all the Disney characters. It was so fun. And then rope dropping it because there was like hardly anyone else in our boat, and getting to like meet a few other families and groups of people who rope dropped it as well. I love it. I love riding it. I'm not going to ride it multiple times when I'm there, but it definitely is a must do.
That's actually a funny story. When we rope dropped it, the family that was behind us, the kids were complaining because they actually weren't ready right at rope drop. So not only did we rope drop it, but we still had to wait for them to open the ride. And the kids were complaining that they had to wait to get on It's a Small World. And the mom was like, no, this is what we do every vacation. We start our Disneyland vacation riding It's a Small World. It's a tradition. So eventually they did get to ride it, and then they got to do all the other things in Galaxy's Edge and Space Mountain and all that stuff that they probably wanted to do more. But it was fun that they got to get that little tradition in there. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me for this tour of Fantasyland at Disneyland.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for our next tour.
For my good friends Gillian and Sarah Says, I'm Rick Doherty, and this has been episode 68 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. We'll have a brand new episode next Thursday when Marissa from Chicago will be back on the show to talk about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in honor of the 3-year anniversary of the land. Until then, have a great week.